Quantum manifestation has always been closer to you than the air you breathe, yet so few truly grasp it. The reason is simple. It defies everything we were taught to believe about life, success, and human worth. From the earliest years, we were immersed in a culture that praises struggle and sanctifies effort. We were told that to achieve anything, we must grind, sacrifice, and pay with blood, sweat, and endless hours. We were conditioned to worship labor as though it were the altar of destiny. Success was declared a prize for the relentless. Love was preached as something you had to chase and conquer. Healing was portrayed as a battle to be won. And so, like soldiers, we marched into adulthood armored for war against life itself, carrying the heavy expectation that struggle was not only necessary, but noble. But quantum reality whispers a different story, one so radical, so paradoxical that most minds refuse to hear it. Physics, at its most fundamental level, does not confirm the gospel of effort. Instead, it reveals a universe orchestrated by resonance, coherence, and alignment. It tells us that struggle is not the law of creation. Stillness is. Clarity is. Harmony is. And here lies the great paradox: the easier the truth, the more violently the conditioned ego resists it. Why? Because the human mind has been trained to measure its own value through the difficulty of its accomplishments. If it was too easy, we dismiss it. We doubt it. We say it must not be real. Thus, when we encounter the living principle of quantum manifestation, effortless alignment, generating reality, we push it away, not because it fails, but because it feels uncomfortably simple. Think about this carefully. How many times have you complicated your dreams? You feel a spark of desire, a vision, a moment of clarity, and yet almost instantly the mind swarms with questions. How will it happen? What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? Within seconds, what was once a coherent signal becomes a fragmented broadcast of static and contradiction. That's not alignment. That's noise. And a noisy signal cannot command the field of possibility. A fragmented vibration cannot collapse reality into form. The universe is not punishing you. It is simply mirroring what you send out. Let's step briefly into science. Quantum mechanics describes coherence as the state in which particles align in harmony, moving as one unified whole, amplifying each other's power. A single particle on its own is small, but when billions vibrate in perfect coherence, even the faintest influence cascades into massive effects. This is why lasers are stronger than ordinary light. This is why superconductors transmit energy without resistance. And this, my friends, is precisely how your consciousness operates. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions move in coherence, when they sing the same frequency, the field responds without effort. You no longer push, you no longer beg. You simply emanate, and the universe reflects. Coherence, however, is not born from trying harder. It doesn't come from endless rituals, lists, or techniques. It arises through clarity. It blossoms when you release the clutter, the doubts, the resistance to ease. The truth is this: your resistance is not your fault. You were programmed by society to equate worth with effort. You were told safety comes from control. You were trained to believe that outcomes must be forced. And yet, if you look closely at your own life, the greatest miracles rarely arrived when you were fighting. They arrived in moments of openness, of receptivity, of surrender. You weren't trying when you met the person who changed everything. You weren't straining when the perfect opportunity found you. In those moments, you were coherent with the field. You were available. And because you were aligned, the universe could finally respond. Understand this well. Quantum manifestation is not about doing nothing. It is not passivity, laziness, or bypassing reality. It is not wishful thinking wrapped in denial. Simplicity in the quantum field is precision. It is energetic exactness. It is the clarity that arises when your whole being is unified in the same song. Simplicity, in scientific terms, is coherence. And coherence is the signature of all true power. In classical physics, we were taught that results come from force. Push harder, move faster, apply more pressure. But in the quantum realm, energy follows an entirely different law. It does not admire struggle. It does not reward exhaustion. Energy flows along the path of least resistance. It seeks the opening. It follows harmony. It moves with elegance and speed where there is no block. So hear this: the harder you try in misalignment, the greater the resistance you generate. But the moment you soften into alignment, the door swings wide. This is why manifestation is not about working more with your hands, but radiating more with your energy. You don't magnetize by grinding. You magnetize by embodying. You don't attract what you sweat for. You attract what you are. Embodiment is the true practice. And embodiment happens when you allow yourself to be the frequency of your desire here, now, before it ever arrives in form. Now, let me ask you the question that can rewrite your life. What if it was always meant to be easy? What if the grace of manifestation was not a trick but the very architecture of reality? What if your refusal to accept simplicity was the only obstacle standing between you and your breakthrough? Can you see it? Can you feel the truth behind these words? The quantum field is not impressed by your struggle. It is not awarding points for difficulty. It is simply matching your vibration. And until you release the story that worth must be earned, your signal remains tangled in contradictions. This is why most people fail at manifestation. They say they want abundance, but they fear lack. They declare love, but they expect abandonment. They ask for healing, but they identify with pain. Their vibration is fragmented, and the universe can only echo back fragmentation. But when you simplify, when you align your words, your feelings, and your expectations, you collapse the noise into music. You become coherent. And in coherence, even the smallest intention has infinite power. So, let us redefine simplicity. It is not naivety. It is not avoidance. Simplicity is mastery. Simplicity is coherence. It is the state where you stop asking whether your dream is possible and begin living as though it already is. It is the state where the contradiction falls silent and your being sings one song, the song of alignment. In that song, the universe cannot resist you. It must respond, for it is not separate from you. It is you. The field is listening always, and it responds to the clarity you dare to embody. So, release the belief in struggle. Let go of the story of effort. Step into coherence. Step into simplicity. And watch the quantum field rearrange itself in the reflection of who you truly are. What do you choose, and who do you become, to match the reality you desire? That is the only question that matters. Everything else is noise, and noise is the great enemy of manifestation because noise keeps you vibrating in confusion. Confusion fractures your signal, and when your signal is fragmented, your desires stay at a distance. So let us simplify. Let us tune in. Picture yourself adjusting the dial of an old radio. At first, there is static, a broken voice flickering in and out, uncertain and incomplete. But then, suddenly, clarity. The music comes through, full, rich, undeniable. That moment of clarity is what coherence feels like. That is what simplicity offers you. The station was never gone. The frequency was always there. You only had to align yourself with it. Quantum manifestation works the same way. The station is your chosen reality. The dial is your vibration. And your task is not to build the station or force the signal, but to tune yourself until you match it. Yet this act of tuning requires something most people resist: trust. It requires surrender. It requires releasing the addiction to control. You do not need to micromanage every detail of the universe. You do not need to obsess over the how and the when. What you need is alignment. Because the truth is, most of your desires are already searching for you. They are already echoing in the field, pulsing in the quantum sea of possibility. But when you complicate, when you overthink, when you insist on force, you build walls of resistance between yourself and what is already yours. Understand this deeply. Simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is mastery. So how do you embody such mastery? You begin by granting yourself stillness. You give your nervous system permission to rest, to stop believing it must earn safety through endless motion. You stop chasing. You pause. And in that pause you discover the choice. You choose the version of yourself who already has what you seek. Not as fantasy, not as wishful thinking, but as identity. You walk as them. You speak as them. You make decisions from their frequency, and you refuse to look back. The moment you embody this version without hesitation, the universe has no choice. By the very laws of quantum resonance, it must mirror that coherence back to you. Let us be clear, complexity is always a symptom of doubt. Simplicity is always the fragrance of trust. When you believe life must be hard, you create hardness. You carve a path filled with obstacles. But when you recognize that energy flows where alignment goes, the struggle dissolves. You shift from doing more to being more, and in this being you receive. You finally see the great secret that the universe was never withholding anything from you. It was only waiting for your signal to become clear enough to reflect. Now, let us dive deeper into the science that mirrors this spiritual truth. In quantum mechanics, there is a concept that transforms our understanding of manifestation coherence. Coherence is when elements, particles, or waves fall into perfect alignment. They cease to function as separate fragments and begin to act as one unified system. And in that unification, energy magnifies. It intensifies. It becomes potent and precise. Coherence does not scatter energy into noise. It channels energy into power. It creates outcomes that are not random but reliable. Not weak, but extraordinary. Imagine for a moment a chaotic system. Particles vibrating in every direction, colliding, canceling, dispersing energy into the void. That is incoherence. That is noise. That is what happens in the inner world of most people. Their thoughts say one thing, their emotions feel another, and their actions follow a third rhythm altogether. The result is dispersion. Their energy is diluted. Their power is weakened. And so, manifestation feels impossible. But now, imagine those same particles suddenly synchronizing. Imagine them aligning in one rhythm, one beat, one intention. The system transforms instantly. Energy no longer leaks. It intensifies. It self-organizes. It becomes not only predictable, but exponentially powerful. This is what happens when your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions come into coherence. This is what happens when your inner world stops arguing with itself. Your consciousness becomes a laser. Your vibration becomes a beacon. And the field, the infinite quantum field, responds with perfect precision. Here lies the challenge. Most people live in incoherence. They think they want abundance, but their emotions vibrate scarcity. They affirm love, but secretly expect betrayal. They say they trust, yet anxiously search for proof, checking their manifestations like impatient auditors of fate. This is not alignment. This is conflict. And the quantum field, which does not hear words but only frequencies, mirrors back that conflict faithfully. It does not care what you say. It reflects what you are. Here lies the game-changing truth. Your manifestations are not blocked because you are lazy. They are not delayed because you are unworthy. They are delayed because your signal is fragmented. You are sending mixed vibrations into a field that only responds to coherence. On one channel, you broadcast desire. On another, you broadcast fear. On yet another, you broadcast doubt. The field hears the noise and reflects it back as delay, confusion, and struggle. But when you simplify, when you strip away the noise, when you commit to a single frequency, everything shifts. Simplicity in this context means agreement. It means your inner dialogue ceases its endless debate. It means your thoughts stop scattering in every direction. It means your emotions no longer sabotage your words. It means your body exits survival mode. In that alignment, mind, heart, and body become one coherent field. And coherence always collapses reality instantly. Do you see now why less is more? It is not because you are doing fewer tasks. It is because every movement of your energy becomes precise. You stop taking 5 steps forward and 4 steps back. You stop wasting your life force in cycles of doubt, fear, and burnout. Instead, your energy becomes elegant, efficient, aligned. Your life stops being a battle against noise and begins to flow as a symphony of coherence. And the universe always faithful mirrors that song back to you in the form of effortless manifestation. This is quantum simplicity in action, not passivity but precision. Not avoidance but alignment. The power of coherence is already within you. The station is already broadcasting. All that remains is the courage to tune in. You stop trying to manifest and instead you begin being the manifestation. This is the moment of shift. When you embody the frequency fully, when you allow every part of your being to vibrate in coherence with the reality you seek, the quantum field reflects it back to you. Not slowly, not someday, but with precision and immediacy. Let's take this understanding deeper. In neuroscience, coherence is not a mystical metaphor, it's a measurable state of the brain. When your mind is trapped in high beta waves, stress survival, overthinking, your neural patterns scatter. They vibrate without harmony, pulling your focus in 100 directions. But drop into alpha or even theta, and something profound happens. The brain waves synchronize. They begin to move in rhythm, amplifying one another. And studies show this synchronization directly enhances your influence over the subconscious mind. Why does this matter? Because the subconscious is the doorway into the quantum field. In other words, coherence is not just spiritual poetry. It is a neurological truth. And when coherence takes hold, the body begins to receive a new signal: safety, calm, alignment. The nervous system shifts from defense to openness. The heart rate stabilizes. Cortisol drops. The immune system strengthens. Intuition sharpens. You enter what science calls regulation, but what mystics call allowing. And in that physiological allowing, you become a living portal of creation. You are no longer straining to force a future. You are allowing your timeline to align itself with the person you already are inside. This is why simplicity is power. Simplicity is not passive waiting. It is energetic congruence. It is becoming the clear, clean, undeniable signal that the universe cannot ignore. When every layer of your being says yes to a timeline, that timeline must collapse into form. Because the quantum field is not bound by time, it responds only to vibration. And when your vibration is coherent, it becomes law. So how do you step into this practically? How do you live coherence instead of just hearing about it? Allow me to give you what I call a 3-shift alignment protocol. This is not a rigid method. It is not a checklist. It is a recalibration, an upgrade to how you relate to desire, to time, and to trust. The first shift: choose clarity over control. Most people are addicted to control, and yes, especially those on a spiritual path. They say they trust the universe, but behind the words is micromanagement, endless, rescripting, obsessive, sign-seeking, repeating visualizations, not from joy, but from fear. That kind of energy is chaos to the field. It's noise. The quantum does not respond to noise. It responds to clarity. So once you've chosen, once you've spoken your yes, stop tinkering. Stop adjusting. Let the clarity stand. The signal was sent. Trust it. The second shift: drop the timeline. Nothing pulls you out of the quantum field faster than urgency. I need this by next week. If it doesn't happen this month, I'll fail. That is not alignment, that is lack disguised as planning. The quantum does not know deadlines. It knows resonance. When you truly align with something, desperation dissolves. You trust. You know. You live as if it's already here. Urgency collapses coherence, but timelessness strengthens it. Because manifestation has nothing to do with the clock. It has everything to do with readiness, and readiness is coherence. The third shift: trust your first alignment. This is perhaps the most radical of all. That initial spark, that moment, the desire lit up your chest when your heart whispered yes. That was enough. That was the transmission. The field received it instantly. The code was already sent. But what happens next? Most people doubt the power of that moment. They repeat it over and over again. They write it, chant it, visualize it not from alignment, but from fear that it didn't work. Every repetition born of fear is a downgrade of the signal. Imagine sending a radio broadcast and then every 5 minutes interrupting to ask, "Did you hear me? Are you sure that is not trust? That is resistance disguised as practice." So remember, this coherence is not repetition, it is certainty. It is allowing the first yes to be final. The power is not in how many times you request, but in how completely you become the request itself. When you stop controlling, when you drop the timeline, when you trust the first yes, you simplify. And in that simplicity, your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions begin to align. The signal becomes clear. And the universe, bound by the law of resonance, reflects it back with speed and accuracy. Complexity scatters. Coherence creates. This is the secret hiding in plain sight. Not that you need more effort, but that you need more harmony. Not that you must chase, but that you must allow. The science shows it. The spirit confirms it. And your own life, if you look closely, has already proven it. Think of the breakthroughs, the miracles, the serendipities that arrived when you were not grasping. They came when you were relaxed, when you were open, when you trusted without knowing why. That is coherence. That is quantum manifestation in its truest simplicity. And that simplicity is not weakness. It is precision. It is mastery. It is your evolution into becoming the very reality you once longed to create. So let me ask you, what if just for today you allowed life to be easy? What if you stopped performing rituals out of fear and instead rested in the vibration of certainty? Because quantum simplicity is not laziness. It is elegance. It is energetic mastery. It is the art of aligning your signal so clearly that the field has no choice but to mirror it back. The more often you return to your first alignment, that initial spark of clarity, the original signal undisturbed, the more powerfully it builds. You don't create momentum through effort. You generate momentum through purity of frequency. And yes, this message runs against almost everything you were taught. We've been programmed to believe that repetition equals devotion, that practice makes perfect, that if we don't keep asking, the universe might somehow forget. But in the quantum model of reality, asking once from a state of aligned certainty holds more weight than asking 100 times from a vibration of doubt. This isn't blind faith. This is physics. In quantum mechanics, the observer collapses the wave into an outcome based on the state of observation. When the observation is pure aligned and free of disturbance, reality responds instantly. So, today, let's break the loop. Let's step out of the exhausting cycle of complexity and into the flow of ease. And if this resonates with you not just as an idea in your mind, but as a felt knowing in your body, then declare it, speak it, type it into the field of life. I allow it to be easy. Understand, this is not a casual affirmation, it is a command. It is a vibrational choice. It is a moment of coherence that rewrites your field of energy. When you surrender the need to manage every detail, you stop matching the frequency of effort and begin transmitting the frequency of trust. This is the shift. You don't manifest by forcing. You manifest by becoming. You don't chase your desires, you harmonize with them. You embody the truth. The quantum has been whispering to you all along. Alignment is the doorway, not struggle. Now, here's the paradox most people never see. The timeline you are reaching for has already been chosen. Not by fate, not by destiny written in stone, but because the very moment you desired it, that reality ignited within the quantum field. It began existing as a tangible potential. Quantum manifestation is not about building a future from nothing. It is about tuning in. The frequency is already broadcasting. You are not inventing it. You are aligning with it. Think about your own life. You've tuned into this reality before. Perhaps many times. You've had flashes of clarity, synchronicities so perfect they felt impossible to explain, gut instincts that guided you to the exact right place. Those weren't accidents. They were alignments. The issue wasn't that the field failed, it was that your mind tuned you out. The moment you whispered, "This is too easy," you snapped back into old programming. And, like a mirror, the universe reflected your doubt. So, let's be clear. Simplicity is not the enemy, it is the doorway. The mind demands steps, rituals, process. But the quantum simply asks for permission. It doesn't require you to understand the mechanism. It only responds to your coherence. When you allow things to feel easy, natural, and unforced, you are not avoiding growth. You are stepping into the vibrational frequency where your higher self already resides. And from that place, alignment stops being effort and becomes your natural state. You are not chasing your future. You are remembering it. You are reconnecting to a version of yourself who has already said yes, already lived the breakthrough, already integrated the lesson. That is what shifting timelines really means. It is not forcing an outcome into existence, but harmonizing with what is already true in another layer of reality. This is not wishful fantasy. It is quantum reality. All timelines exist simultaneously. The one you desire is not far away. It is present, available, alive in the field. You don't need to build it. You only need to stop resisting it. And resistance at its core is the story you tell yourself that says, "This is too good to be true." That story is not truth. It is programming. It is the echo of a society that conditioned you to believe worth must be earned through struggle, that value is measured in sacrifice. But your worth has never been in question. The universe has never needed proof of your value. The only block is the belief that you must suffer to deserve what is already yours. The moment you release that belief, the moment you declare that ease is allowed, you align with your true power. Every time you surrender to simplicity, every time you whisper, "I am allowed to receive with ease," you rise closer to the frequency of your higher self. That version of you does not hustle. It does not beg the universe. It does not doubt its own resonance. It simply exists in flow, in trust, in coherence. And in that coherence, manifestation is not forced, it is inevitable. This is the essence of quantum manifestation. It is not a trick. It is not a manipulation of energy. It is remembrance. It is the return to resonance with the self who already lives the reality you seek. And once you step into that remembrance, once you embody it fully, the quantum field reflects it without hesitation. When you say yes to simplicity, you say yes to the version of yourself that has already arrived. And when your vibration says yes, the universe cannot help but echo it instantly. So pause with me now. Feel this truth in your body. The path you are walking is not new, it is remembered. You are not lost. You are simply retracing the coordinates of your soul's frequency. You are not building from nothing. You are aligning with the energy of what was always yours. This is how you break the loop. Not by adding more layers of effort, but by becoming quieter, clearer, truer. If you feel something settling deeper than words, breathe it in. Let that breath become your signal. Let it be your permission slip to stop resisting and start flowing. And if you are ready to lock this frequency in, declare it, "I remember my timeline." This is not casual affirmation. It is coherence in action. It is a command that reprograms your field. Each time you remember instead of chase, the universe organizes itself around you. Signs appear. Shifts unfold. And soon, you no longer ask when it will happen because you realize it already has. Stay with me, because what comes next is where simplicity turns into power and power transforms into your natural way of being. Perhaps by now, you feel it not as theory, but as a resonance in your body, a subtle hum in your breath, a quiet click in your field. That sensation is not fluff. It is vibrational confirmation. Quantum manifestation rarely arrives as thunder. It reveals itself through recognition, through remembrance. You didn't stumble into this message by accident. Frequency called you here. Something inside you long before your mind admitted it knew the time had come. Time to stop forcing. Time to stop chasing. Time to stop believing that suffering is the price of receiving. The universe has never demanded that of you. It only ever asked for coherence, for clarity, for the willingness to let it be simple. That is the final shift. To stop intellectualizing manifestation and instead become the living frequency of it. Not as something you practice occasionally, but as your default state, as your baseline vibration. So, let this anchor into you. Now, I allow it to be easy. Say it again softer this time. Let your body release its tension into the phrase. This is not avoidance. This is not laziness. This is quantum intelligence expressing itself through you. Look to nature for proof. A tree does not force itself to grow taller. A wave does not question its motion toward the shore. The universe itself expands not by striving, but by remaining in harmony with its own design. And you, too, are part of that same intelligence. You simply forgot. But now you remember. And if something inside you stirred today, if these words felt like more than words, if they awakened a memory of who you truly are, then understand this is only the beginning. But hear me, you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not late. Everything you have asked for is already in motion, not because you forced it, but because you finally matched it. And the more you relax into alignment, the more swiftly life reflects it back. You are no longer chasing. You are aligning. And that shift is what changes everything. So let's close this moment together with one breath. Inhale, gently receiving. Exhale, fully releasing. Let go of the control. Let go of the repetition. Let go of the struggle. You no longer need to push. You only need to become. Because you were never designed to fight for what is already yours. You were meant to resonate, to allow to remember.